So I'm sitting at my desk about 3 weeks ago, and I get this message from a listener who says, "You need to do an episode on Mark Zuckerberg." And I'm thinking, everyone thinks they know this story. The hoodie, the move fast and break things, the dorm room. But here's the thing. I had just finished reading everything I could find about the early days of Facebook, and I realized something. We don't actually know this story. We know the movie version. We know the headlines. But we don't know the real Mark Zuckerberg. So I did what I always do. I went deep. I spent the last 3 weeks consuming everything. Early interviews from 2004, blog posts, letters to shareholders, videos of him coding, profiles written by people who were actually there. And what I found was not what I expected. This is not a story about a kid who got lucky. This is a story about obsession. About someone who saw something that nobody else could see and refused to let go. And the more I studied, the more I kept thinking about something Steve Jobs said. He said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." Mark Zuckerberg was crazy enough, and he did. Let me tell you how I got here. I was actually rereading the Steve Jobs biography for probably the 5th time, and there's this part where Walter Isaacson talks about Jobs' reality distortion field, his ability to convince people that impossible things were possible. And I thought, who else has that? Who else bends reality to their will? And Zuckerberg's name kept coming up. Because here's what most people miss. Facebook didn't win because it was better. Friendster existed, MySpace existed. They had millions of users. Facebook won because Mark Zuckerberg was more obsessed than anyone else. He was willing to go further, to work harder, to sacrifice more. And I realized I need to study this guy the way I studied Enzo Ferrari or James Dyson or Edwin Land. Because there's wisdom here, there's a pattern. So let's start at the beginning. Mark Zuckerberg is born in 1984. His dad is a dentist. His mom is a psychiatrist. They live in this nice suburban house in Dobbs Ferry, New York. Normal kid, right? Wrong. By age 11, he's already writing software. His parents hire a computer tutor named David Newman to teach him programming. And Newman later said something fascinating. He said it was tough to stay ahead of him. Mark would finish assignments and just keep going. He wasn't doing this for school. He wasn't doing this for his parents. He was compelled. This is a pattern you see over and over again with the people I study. The greatest entrepreneurs don't choose their obsession. The obsession chooses them. Edwin Land with instant photography. James Dyson with vacuum cleaners. Steve Jobs with making perfect products. Mark Zuckerberg with connecting people. They have no choice. They need to get it out of their system. And here's what's important. Zuckerberg's first instinct, even as a kid, was to build things that connected people. When he's 12 years old, what does he build? A messaging system for his dad's dental office, so the receptionist can notify his dad when a patient arrives. He called it ZuckNet. Think about this. He's 12, and he's already solving communication problems, already thinking about networks, already thinking about how to connect people who are in different rooms, different spaces. This is not random. This is the seed. This is the obsession beginning to take shape. And his dad said in an interview years later, "We knew he was special, but we had no idea how special." By the time he gets to high school, Zuckerberg is that kid. You know the type. He's taking graduate-level computer science courses while he's still a sophomore. He builds a music player called Synapse that uses artificial intelligence to learn your listening habits and recommend songs. This is 1999, before Spotify, before Pandora, before any of that. And here's the crazy part. AOL and Microsoft both tried to buy it. They offered him $1 million. They tried to hire him. He's in high school, and he says no. He turns them down. Why? Because he wants to go to college. He wants to learn more. He's not motivated by money. Not yet. He's motivated by the craft, by getting better. This reminds me so much of what Larry Ellison said about young Steve Jobs. He said Steve wanted to make great products more than he wanted to make money. That's Zuckerberg at 17. So he goes to Harvard in 2002. And here's where the story gets interesting. Because everyone talks about Facebook starting in a dorm room, but they miss what happened right before. Zuckerberg gets to Harvard, and he's frustrated. He can't believe that this elite university, with all its resources, doesn't have a student directory online. You can't see who's in your classes. You can't look up other students. Everything is on paper. In these books they print once a year. And this bugs him. This really bugs him. Because he sees what nobody else sees. He sees that the internet isn't about publishing information. It's about connecting people. And Harvard is wasting the opportunity. So what does he do? He builds Facemash, a program that lets students see what classes their friends are taking so they can pick classes together. Simple, elegant, useful. People love it. Then he builds Facemash. Now, this is where he gets in trouble, and we need to talk about this because it's important. Facemash was a hot or not clone for Harvard students. You'd see two photos. Pick which person is more attractive. It was sophomoric. It was immature. It violated privacy. Harvard threatened to expel him. And here's what I love. In his blog post about it, Zuckerberg wrote something fascinating. He said he was studying for an art history final, looking at these images, and he thought, why can't the experience of looking at art be social? Why can't we share our reactions? This is the way his mind works. Everything becomes about connection. Everything becomes about making experiences social. Even when he's building something stupid and getting in trouble for it, the underlying instinct is right. Connect people. Let them share. Let them interact. And this is the moment. This is when he realizes what needs to exist. He writes in his blog, I think it's kind of silly that it would take the university a couple of years to get around to it. I can do it better than they can, and I can do it in a week. Listen to that confidence. I can do it better than they can. He's 19 years old, and he already knows he can out-execute Harvard University. This reminds me of what Elon Musk said about SpaceX. He looked at NASA and said, I can do this better. That same energy. That same refusal to accept that the existing institutions know best. So on February 4, 2004, Zuckerberg launches the Facebook. Just for Harvard students. You need a harvard.edu email to sign up, and listen to what happens. Within 24 hours, over 1,000 people register. Within a month, more than half of Harvard undergrads have profiles. This is explosive growth. And here's what nobody talks about. Why did it work when Friendster and MySpace already existed? Because Zuckerberg understood something about human psychology that nobody else did. He understood exclusivity. He understood identity. When you joined the Facebook, you weren't just creating a profile. You were representing Harvard. You were part of an exclusive network. And that constraint, that limitation, is what made it powerful. This is so counterintuitive. Most people think, make it available to everyone, grow as fast as possible. Zuckerberg said no, constrain it. Make it exclusive. Make people want it. And this is pure genius. This is the same strategy that made Gmail huge when it was invite only. The same strategy that made Clubhouse blow up for a minute. Scarcity creates value. Zuckerberg understood this at 19. Now his roommates get involved. Dustin Moskovitz, Eduardo Saverin, Chris Hughes. And this is important because Zuckerberg immediately starts acting like a founder, not a college student. He's obsessed. He's coding around the clock. Moskovitz said in an interview that Zuckerberg would code for days straight, barely sleeping, barely eating, just obsessed with making it work, making it better, adding features. And here's the thing. Other people see Facebook and think, cool college project. Zuckerberg sees something completely different. He sees the future. He sees that every person on Earth is going to want to be connected. He sees that the social graph, the map of human relationships, is going to be the most valuable thing in the world. And he's right. He's 19 years old, and he's seeing 20 years into the future. Within 2 months, they expand to other schools, Yale, Columbia, Stanford, and Zuckerberg makes a decision that changes everything. He drops out of Harvard. Sophomore year, he moves to Palo Alto, and everyone tells him he's crazy. His parents are worried. His friends think he's throwing away his Harvard education. But Zuckerberg says something that I think about all the time. He says, the biggest risk is not taking any risk. In a world that's changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks. Think about this. He's 20 years old, and he already understands that the world rewards boldness, that playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do. This is exactly what Steve Jobs said. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Zuckerberg is staying foolish. He's betting everything on this vision that nobody else can see. So they move into this house in Palo Alto. They're living together, coding together, 24/7. And this is when Sean Parker enters the picture. Sean Parker, who had founded Napster, who understood virality and growth. And Parker sees something in Zuckerberg. He sees that rare combination of technical genius and strategic vision. And he tells Zuckerberg, you need to move fast. You need to grow fast, because there's a window, and if you don't capture it, someone else will. This is crucial advice, because Zuckerberg could have stayed small, could have been a nice business for college students. But Parker pushes him to think bigger. And Zuckerberg responds. He's coachable, he's learning. He's absorbing wisdom from someone who's been there before. This reminds me of what Peter Thiel said about the PayPal mafia. They all learned from each other. They all pushed each other. That's what Parker is doing for Zuckerberg. And then something happens that would have destroyed most people. The Winklevoss twins and Divya Narendra sue him. They claim he stole their idea. They claim he was supposed to build a site for them and instead built Facebook. And this drags on for years. Lawsuits, depositions, public accusations. The movie, The Social Network, makes him look like a villain. And here's what I find fascinating. Zuckerberg never stops building. He doesn't get distracted. He doesn't get bitter. He keeps his head down and keeps coding, keeps improving Facebook, keeps growing. This is the show must go on mentality. This is what Enzo Ferrari had, what Walt Disney had. Obstacles are just obstacles. They don't stop you. They're just there to be solved. And Zuckerberg solves them. He settles the lawsuit. He moves on. And Facebook keeps growing. Let me tell you about the money. Because this is where it gets really interesting. In 2004, just a few months after launch, Facebook gets its first investment offer. $10 million for 15% of the company from a group of investors. Zuckerberg is 20 years old. He has no revenue, and people are offering him $10 million. He says no. Why? Because he thinks it undervalues the company. Think about the confidence that takes, the belief in your own vision. And then Peter Thiel comes in. Thiel invests $500,000 for 10%. And this is important because Thiel doesn't just give money. He gives credibility. He gives strategic advice. He connects Zuckerberg to other founders. And Zuckerberg is smart enough to learn from someone who's already built a massive company. This is something I see over and over. The greatest founders surround themselves with people smarter than they are. They learn voraciously. Zuckerberg is learning from Thiel. He's learning from Parker. He's learning from everyone around him. And he's getting better. But here's where the story takes a turn that most people don't appreciate. In 2006, Yahoo offers to buy Facebook for $1 billion. $1 billion. Zuckerberg is 22 years old. His board is pushing him to take it. His investors want him to take it. Eduardo Saverin wants him to take it. And Zuckerberg says no. He walks away from $1 billion. His dad later said that Mark called him and said, "I think I'm going to turn down the Yahoo deal." And his dad asked why. And Zuckerberg said, "Because I don't think we're done yet. I don't think we're done yet." Listen to that. At 22, he has the courage to turn down $1 billion because he believes there's more to build. This is insane. This is the level of conviction that separates the good from the great. Most people would take the money, would think, "I won, I can retire, I'm set for life." Zuckerberg says, that's not what this is about. This is about building something that matters, something that lasts. This is about the mission. This reminds me of what Steve Jobs said when he returned to Apple. He said, "Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. Going to bed at night saying we've done something wonderful, that's what matters." Zuckerberg gets this at 22. And here's what happens. Facebook keeps growing. They open it up to everyone, not just college students. And the growth is extraordinary. Millions of users, then tens of millions, then hundreds of millions. And Zuckerberg is learning on the job. He's making mistakes. The Beacon program where they shared people's purchases without consent, that was a disaster. But he learns. He apologizes. He fixes it. He's iterating, not just on the product, but on himself, as a leader, as a CEO. And this is something people miss. Zuckerberg is not a natural CEO. He's awkward in interviews. He's not charismatic like Jobs or Musk. But he works at it. He studies it. He gets coaching. He reads management books. He talks to other CEOs. And he gets better. Year after year, he gets better. This is the power of compounding. Not just with money, but with skills, with wisdom, with leadership ability. Zuckerberg is compounding his abilities. Let me tell you what I think is the most important thing about Mark Zuckerberg. And I've been thinking about this a lot. The most important thing is his clarity of vision. From the very beginning, he knew what he was building. It wasn't a college directory. It wasn't a social network. It was a utility, a tool that would help people connect and share. And that vision never wavered, even when people told him to pivot, even when competitors were doing different things, even when investors wanted him to monetize faster. He stayed true to the vision. Connect people. Make the world more open and connected. That was the mission. And everything else was in service of that mission. This is exactly what Jeff Bezos talks about with Amazon. Be stubborn on vision, but flexible on details. Zuckerberg was stubborn on vision, obsessively stubborn. And that's why Facebook won. Now let's talk about 2012. Because this is a moment that defines Zuckerberg's career. Facebook goes public. The IPO is a disaster. The stock price drops. Analysts are saying Facebook is overvalued, saying mobile is killing them, saying they missed the shift to smartphones. And Zuckerberg does something remarkable. He doesn't panic. He doesn't fire people. He doesn't change the strategy. He just executes. He focuses the entire company on mobile. He says, "We're going to be a mobile-first company," and they do it. They rebuild the entire app. They figure out mobile advertising, and within a year, the stock recovers. Within 2 years, it's higher than ever. This is the ultimate comeback story. This is proof that Zuckerberg is not just a product guy. He's a real CEO, someone who can lead through crisis, who can adapt and evolve. And this is when I think he earns the respect of Silicon Valley. Because anyone can build a product. But can you build a company that survives and thrives when everyone counts you out? Zuckerberg did. And then he makes these massive bets. In 2012, he buys Instagram for $1 billion. Everyone thinks he's crazy. Instagram has 13 employees and 0 revenue. But Zuckerberg sees what's coming. He sees that photo sharing is the future. That mobile photography is going to be huge. And he's willing to pay what seems like an absurd price to own it. This is pure vision. This is seeing around corners. And it turns out to be one of the best acquisitions in tech history. Instagram is now worth over $100 billion. Then in 2014, he buys WhatsApp for $19 billion. $19 billion for a messaging app. And again, everyone thinks he's insane. But Zuckerberg understands that messaging is how people communicate. That owning the platforms where people connect is the most valuable thing in the world. And he's right. WhatsApp has over 2 billion users now. These acquisitions show something important. Zuckerberg is not just defending his position. He's attacking. He's buying the future before anyone else sees it. This is the Jeff Bezos strategy. This is the Rockefeller strategy. Buy the next thing before it's obvious. Control the ecosystem. And Zuckerberg does it brilliantly. But let me tell you what I think is the most underrated thing about Zuckerberg. His focus. I mean truly intense, maniacal focus. Every year since 2009, he set himself a personal challenge. Learn Mandarin. Read a book every 2 weeks. Build an AI assistant for his home. Run 365 miles. Meet someone from every state. And these aren't just publicity stunts. He actually does them. And the reason he does them is the same reason Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day. To eliminate decision fatigue. To conserve mental energy for the things that matter. Zuckerberg said in an interview, "I really want to clear my life to make it so that I have to make as few decisions as possible about anything except how to best serve this community." That's focus. That's discipline. And it works. Because while everyone else is worrying about 1,000 different things, Zuckerberg is thinking about one thing. How to connect the world. How to build the best products. How to execute the mission. And his work ethic is absolutely insane. There are stories about him coding until 3 or 4 in the morning, sleeping a few hours, and being back at it by 7. Even after Facebook was worth billions. Even after he had nothing left to prove. He still works like he's in that dorm room. This is the same thing I see with Elon Musk. The same thing I saw with James Dyson. The greatest founders never stop. They never think, "I made it, I can relax." They're driven by something deeper than money or fame. They're driven by the work itself, by the mission, by the desire to see how far they can push the boundaries. Zuckerberg has that drive. That internal engine that never shuts off. Now we have to talk about the challenges, because it hasn't all been smooth. The Cambridge Analytica scandal was a nightmare. Privacy concerns, government regulations, the accusation that Facebook contributed to polarization, to misinformation, to all these social problems. And Zuckerberg has had to testify before Congress, has had to face criticism from all sides. And here's what I find interesting. He doesn't run from it. He shows up. He testifies. He wears a suit. He tries to explain. Does he always get it right? No. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. But he stays in the arena. He takes the hits. And he keeps building. This reminds me of what Theodore Roosevelt said about the man in the arena. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. That's Zuckerberg. He's in the arena, and it's brutal, but he doesn't quit. And then comes the biggest bet of his career, the metaverse. In 2021, he changes the company name from Facebook to Meta. He says the future is not just social networking, it's virtual reality, it's augmented reality. It's a digital world where people can work, play, and connect in entirely new ways. And he commits billions of dollars to this vision, $10 billion a year, every year. Building VR headsets, building software, building a platform that doesn't exist yet. And Wall Street hates it. The stock crashes. People call him crazy, say he's lost his mind, that he's wasting money on science fiction. But here's what I love. Zuckerberg doesn't care. He doesn't change course because of criticism. He believes in the vision, and he's willing to be misunderstood for years if it means getting to the future first. This is exactly what Jeff Bezos did with AWS, exactly what Steve Jobs did with the iPhone. They saw what was coming before anyone else, and they bet big. And they were willing to look stupid in the short term to be right in the long term. Zuckerberg is doing the same thing. Let me tell you about his management philosophy, because this is something that evolved over time. In the early days, his motto was, move fast and break things, and that worked when Facebook was small, when they could iterate quickly, when mistakes didn't matter as much. But as the company grew, as they had billions of users, that philosophy became dangerous. You can't break things when billions of people depend on your platform. So Zuckerberg evolved. He changed it to move fast with stable infrastructure, not as catchy, but more mature, more responsible. And this shows growth. This shows that he's willing to change his mind when the situation demands it. But here's what didn't change. The focus on speed, on moving faster than the competition, on shipping products, on iterating. That core belief in velocity that never went away, because Zuckerberg understands that in tech, speed is everything. The fast beat the slow more than the big beat the small. And Facebook, even as it became massive, stayed fast. And let's talk about his competition, because Zuckerberg has faced every possible competitor. Friendster, MySpace, Google with Google+, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, every company that's tried to build a social network. And what's remarkable is how many of them he's outlasted. Friendster is dead, MySpace is dead, Google+ is dead, Twitter is struggling, and Facebook, now Meta, is still here, still growing, still innovating. Why? Because Zuckerberg learned from every competitor. When Snapchat introduced stories, Facebook copied it. When TikTok blew up with short-form video, Facebook introduced Reels. Some people criticize this, call him a copycat, but I think it's smart. As Pablo Picasso said, good artists copy, great artists steal. Zuckerberg steals relentlessly. He sees what works, and he brings it to his platform. And he does it better. He does it with more distribution, with better technology. This is not weakness. This is strength. This is pragmatism. This is doing whatever it takes to win. Here's what I keep coming back to. Mark Zuckerberg is only 40 years old. Think about that. He's younger than Elon Musk, younger than Jeff Bezos, younger than Larry and Sergey. He built one of the most valuable companies in the world before he was 30. And he's still building. He's still learning. He's still evolving. The story is not over, not even close. And that's what makes him so fascinating. Because we're watching in real time as someone tries to push the boundaries of what's possible. As someone tries to build not just a company, but a platform, a utility. Something that billions of people use every single day. That's the level of impact we're talking about. And whether you love Facebook or hate it, whether you think Zuckerberg is a genius or a villain, you can't deny the magnitude of what he's built. Let me tell you about something that really stood out to me in my research. In 2012, Zuckerberg wrote a letter to potential shareholders before the IPO. And in that letter, he laid out Facebook's philosophy. He said, "We don't build services to make money. We make money to build better services." Think about that framing. Think about how different that is from most companies. Most companies exist to maximize profit, to deliver returns to shareholders. Zuckerberg is saying, no, that's backwards. The product comes first. The mission comes first. The money is just fuel for the mission. This is the exact same thing that Walt Disney said. He said, "We don't make movies to make money. We make money to make more movies." It's the same philosophy. Put the craft first. Put the mission first, and the money will follow. And it has. Meta is worth over $1 trillion. But it started with a mission. It started with a vision of connecting every person on Earth, and that vision drove everything else. And here's something else from that letter that I think about constantly. Zuckerberg wrote, "The hacker way is an approach to building that involves continuous improvement and iteration." Hackers believe that something can always be better, and that nothing is ever complete. This is so important, because it explains not just Facebook's culture, but Zuckerberg's mindset. Nothing is ever complete. There is no finish line. You don't build a product and then stop. You build and iterate and improve forever. This is the same mindset that Toyota has with Kaizen, continuous improvement. The same mindset that Amazon has with its obsession over customer experience. The best companies never stop getting better, and the best founders never stop pushing. Zuckerberg embodies this. He's never satisfied. Even when Facebook had 1 billion users, he wanted 2 billion. Even when it was worth 100 billion, he wanted more, not because of greed, but because of the mission. Because there are still billions of people not connected, still problems to solve, still improvements to make. Let me tell you about his relationship with talent, because this is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Zuckerberg is obsessed with hiring the best people, absolutely obsessed. He said that he would rather have a smaller team of exceptional people than a larger team of good people. And he's willing to do whatever it takes to get those exceptional people. He personally recruits. He'll spend hours convincing someone to join. He'll offer whatever it takes: equity, freedom, resources, because he understands that the team is everything. That A players attract more A players, and that the quality of your people determines the quality of your product. This is something Steve Jobs understood. He said, "The difference between a good engineer and a great engineer is 50 times, not just 2 times." Zuckerberg gets this, and he's built a culture that attracts the best, that challenges them, that gives them hard problems to solve. And that's why Facebook has been able to keep innovating, to keep shipping, to keep winning. There's this story about the early days that I just love. Zuckerberg used to conduct what he called lockdowns. The whole team would stay at the office all night. They'd order food, they'd code together, they'd ship a new feature by morning. And these weren't mandatory. People wanted to do them because they were fun. because they were building something that mattered. This is the same energy that the early Apple team had, that the early Amazon team had, that burning desire to create, to ship, to see what you built go out into the world. And Zuckerberg created a culture where that energy thrived, where people felt like they were part of something historic. And they were. They were building a platform that would change the world. Now, let's talk about something controversial. The criticisms. Because there are a lot of them. People say Facebook is addictive by design, that it manipulates users, that it prioritizes engagement over well-being, that it's contributed to political polarization, to the spread of misinformation, to mental health issues, especially among teenagers. And these are serious criticisms. I'm not going to dismiss them. But here's what I'll say. Building a platform that billions of people use comes with responsibilities that nobody has ever had to face before. There's no playbook for this, no historical precedent. Zuckerberg is navigating uncharted territory. And yes, he's made mistakes. Yes, there are real harms that need to be addressed. But I also think we have to recognize the difficulty of what he's trying to do. Trying to build systems that work for billions of people across hundreds of countries, speaking thousands of languages, with different cultures and values and norms. That's almost impossibly hard. And I think Zuckerberg is learning, is evolving, is trying to do better. Does that absolve him of responsibility? No. But it does provide context, and here's something I find fascinating. Despite all the criticism, despite all the scandals, Facebook keeps growing. People keep using it. Why? Because it provides value, real value. It lets you stay in touch with friends and family. It lets you share your life. It lets you find communities of people who share your interests. That value is real. And billions of people choose to use it every single day. Not because they're forced to, but because they want to. Because it makes their lives better in some way. And I think that's worth acknowledging. That for all the problems, there is also genuine value being created. Genuine connections being made. And that was always the mission, to connect people. And in that, Zuckerberg has succeeded beyond what anyone could have imagined. Let me tell you about his learning curve. Because one of the things I admire most about Zuckerberg is his willingness to learn in public, to admit mistakes, to change course when needed. After the Cambridge Analytica scandal, he testified before Congress. And he was clearly uncomfortable. He was awkward. He made mistakes, but he showed up. And then, what did he do? He got better. The next time he testified, he was more prepared, more articulate, more in command of the details. He studied, he practiced, he improved. This is the growth mindset in action. This is someone who refuses to be limited by their weaknesses, who works to get better. And you can see it across his entire career. In the early days, he was an awkward public speaker. Now, he's actually pretty good. Not great. He'll never be a Steve Jobs on stage, but competent, professional. Because he worked at it. He got coaching, he practiced. And this is something that separates great founders from good ones. The willingness to do the hard work of improving yourself, of becoming the leader your company needs. Zuckerberg has done that. And let's talk about the meta pivot, because I think this is actually his boldest move. Changing the company's entire identity. Betting billions on a vision that most people don't understand, that most people think is crazy. But Zuckerberg sees what we don't see yet. He sees that the next platform is not mobile. It's not even spatial computing, though that's part of it. It's a fully immersive digital world, where you can work, play, socialize, create, all in virtual and augmented reality. And he's willing to lose money for years to get there first, to build that platform, to own that future. This is the ultimate long-term thinking. This is being willing to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term dominance. And if he's right, if the metaverse becomes the next major computing platform, Meta will be positioned like Microsoft was in the PC era, like Apple and Google are in the mobile era. That's what he's going for, total platform dominance. And that level of ambition, that level of vision, that's what makes him fascinating. Here's something that really struck me. Zuckerberg owns controlling interest in Meta through dual-class shares. He has majority voting control, which means he can't be fired. He can't be forced out. He controls the company's destiny. And people criticize this, say it's undemocratic, say shareholders should have more power. But here's the thing, this structure allows Zuckerberg to think long-term, to make bets that Wall Street would never approve, to pursue a vision that might take 10 years to pay off. And I think that's valuable, because public markets are short-term oriented, quarterly earnings, stock price, immediate returns. But building great companies requires long-term thinking, requires being willing to be misunderstood, and Zuckerberg's voting control gives him that freedom. It lets him be a founder, not just a CEO. It lets him stay true to the mission. And I think that's why Meta has been able to keep innovating, keep taking risks, keep pushing forward. Let me tell you about something Zuckerberg said that I think captures his entire philosophy. He said, "Ideas don't come out fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started." Think about that. Ideas don't come out fully formed. This is the opposite of how most people think. Most people think you need a perfect plan, a complete vision, all the answers before you start. Zuckerberg is saying, no, you figure it out as you go. You start with a direction, with an instinct, and you iterate. You learn, you adjust, and slowly the vision becomes clear. This is exactly what Steve Jobs meant when he said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." You have to trust that the dots will connect. That if you keep moving forward, keep building, keep learning, the path will reveal itself. And that's what Zuckerberg did. He didn't have Facebook figured out when he launched it in that dorm room. He figured it out by building it, by shipping it, by seeing how people used it. And that iterative approach, that bias toward action, that's what allowed him to win. And here's what I think is the ultimate lesson from Mark Zuckerberg's story. The importance of belief, of conviction, of being willing to trust your vision even when everyone else thinks you're wrong. He turned down $1 billion at 22. He bet the company on mobile when everyone said they were too late. He bought Instagram and WhatsApp when everyone said he was overpaying. He's betting tens of billions on the metaverse when everyone says it's a fantasy. And every single time, he's been proven right. Not immediately, not always in the way he expected. But in the long run, his bets have paid off. Because he sees things other people don't see. Because he's willing to wait. Because he thinks in decades, not quarters. And that's rare. That's special. That's what makes someone a founder, not just a CEO. You know, I've spent weeks studying Zuckerberg's career, reading everything, watching every interview, analyzing every decision. And what strikes me most is the consistency. From that first line of code in his dorm room to today, running $1 trillion company, the core philosophy hasn't changed. Connect people. Build tools that bring people together. Make the world more open and connected. That's been the North Star. Everything else, all the pivots and acquisitions and strategic shifts, they're all in service of that mission. And I think that clarity, that unwavering focus on the mission, is what separates the legendary founders from everyone else. They know what they're building. They know why it matters, and they never lose sight of that. Even when everything else changes, even when the tactics evolve, the mission remains constant. And here's what I want you to take away from this. If Mark Zuckerberg teaches us anything, it's this. The biggest risk is playing it safe. The biggest mistake is thinking small. The biggest regret is not betting on yourself when you have the chance. Zuckerberg could have sold for $1 billion, could have taken the safe path, could have stayed at Harvard and gotten a comfortable job, but he didn't. He bet on himself, he bet on his vision, and he changed the world. Now, most of us won't build companies worth $1 trillion. Most of us won't connect billions of people. But all of us have something we're called to do, something we're obsessed with, something that keeps us up at night. And the question is, are we willing to bet on it? Are we willing to sacrifice for it? Are we willing to look stupid, to be criticized, to face failure in pursuit of that vision? Because that's what it takes. That's always what it takes. The greatest achievements require the greatest risk. The biggest impact requires the boldest vision. And the only way to find out what you're capable of is to go all in. Mark Zuckerberg went all in at 19 years old, and he's still all in today, still building, still pushing, still trying to see how far he can go. And that's what I find so inspiring about his story. Not that he's perfect, not that he hasn't made mistakes, but that he never stopped believing, never stopped building, never stopped trying to push the boundaries of what's possible. And that relentless drive, that obsessive commitment to the mission, that's what changed the world. That's what built one of the most important companies in history. And that's what can change your world too, if you're willing to commit, if you're willing to work, if you're willing to believe in something bigger than yourself. That's the lesson. That's the wisdom. That's what Mark Zuckerberg's story teaches us. And I hope you'll take it with you. I hope you'll think about what you're building, what you're called to create. And I hope you'll have the courage to go all in on that vision, because the world needs it. The world needs your crazy ideas, your obsessions, your refusal to accept the status quo. That's how the world changes, one obsessed founder at a time. And maybe, just maybe, that founder is you. Thanks for listening.